Are there other things that you consider when looking at somewhere that would like, or help you to define somewhere that you might like to live beyond those?
I really like adventure stuff too. Adventure stuff you could do anywhere, but I'm just saying it's also a bonus when you can also do it in the country that you're in.
And it's
Not saying you
actually
can't.
adventurous.
Yeah.
So you can do it anywhere. It just might not be as adventurous as other places.
Yeah. I mean, Colombia, Thailand, like I've lived in those places, and those places have everything to offer like any other country would in terms of doing adventurous things. It's just a lot cheaper to do them. Like in Thailand, we went to Thailand together. We rented
Correct.
2 motorbikes, and it was, I don't know, it was like $5 a day or something. Mad cheap. No, what was it? Maybe it was a little more, like $10 a day.
Yeah, it's something like $7 or $10 a day. Not expensive.
Yeah, so it's just crazy, just the differences in the, you know, when you bring your native dollar to another country. Because in Australia, you can't rent a motorbike. You can't just go to a place and rent a motorbike if you want. Like there's a protocol, and you know it's expensive as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's just like the freedom to do some of these things is just there's more barriers in first world countries for citizens.
For certain things, yeah, no, I agree with you. And what we're seeing now, like in Western countries, is like the middle class is also getting hollowed out. So the gap between the haves and the have-nots is also increasing in these countries too now. Like that's a big thing. This is a big artifact of the pandemic, is that like, you know, those mom and pop shops closing down and essentially like hollowing out the middle class. And you know, you were talking before about like, you know, first world countries or more developed countries having greater economic security. And then you can even look at the state, you know, the US at the moment, and the inflation of their currency and the purchasing power of their dollar decreasing, you know? So like you mentioned, like it isn't a guaranteed thing. So I think for me, right, like I definitely consider geography and climate. They're two big considerations for me. Like I'm not, I don't like, you know, I like a range of seasons, or I like the ability to have the 4 different seasons, if that makes sense. Like I couldn't be somewhere that was just the same all year round. I like a little bit of diversity, but it isn't a deal breaker because you can always go and get that diversity if you want to, if you're in a position to do that, right? But that's a luxury essentially. So having somewhere like, or being in a country where you can have that diversity of climate and geography too, like you mentioned mountains and beaches and desert, all those different things, like that diversity is a form of freedom. To have access to all of that is a form of freedom. Okay. Then on top of that, that's a big one for me, right? And then layering on top of that, it would be the government and the culture, right? The culture of the people in that country and the government in that country are the next 2 biggest things that I really consider. I think that those 2 things are hugely powerful and impactful and sort of define or create the space for what can happen in those countries and what's like, you know, likely to happen in those countries. And that's a tough one. Like that's a really hard one to dissect, isn't it? Like you mentioned, like it's easier to get a motorbike or a scooter or hire this or do that in Thailand or even Colombia than it is in Australia. And there's an interesting trend that's sort of happening, which is like developed countries are becoming more and more restricted. There's more and more, forms you have to fill out or hoops you have to jump through, or, you know, processes that you need to do, and all in the name of safety, right? But that it seems to be over constraining the system. And you do, like I've been feeling this, like, you know, a reduction in my sense of freedom. And there's something beautiful and magical about having like less of those restrictions. And so places that have that are very appealing. But then if you take that to another extreme with less of those restrictions, then you can end up where, you know, there can be sort of like, it can be dangerous. There can be, you know, like not as safe, so to speak, even though we know that, like that's a very broad term, and like there are areas in every safe place where it's dangerous and all the rest. It's more complicated than that. But it's something. It's to me, it's like where the world has developed to a certain point now where we're sort of like becoming fixed in a lot of these ways of being. And I don't know if they're the best ways to be.